If you've ever been to this channel before, you may have noticed, or you may not have noticed. It's kind of subtle, but I am bald. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry to break it to you if you didn't realize it until now, but I am bald. And no, I don't just shave it because it looks good, even though it does. I have male pattern baldness. And I'm not alone. Apparently about 25% of men start to bald before they reach age 30. For me, it happened a bit sooner than that, when I was about 16, but I'll get into that soon. I'm making this video about baldness today because over the years, being out on the internet, being on YouTube, I've gotten comments, some kind, some not so kind, some about my appearance, some about my baldness. So I'm responding to one of the more recent comments about baldness. Here it is. He says, "Please make video about balding, how baldness has affected you. I am 24 years old and I'm lose hair like crazy. I am very worried and think my life will end when I be bald. Girls, and special young girls, don't like bald guys." So, my young balding friend, today I'm going to answer the age-old question, is a man's life over when he starts to lose his hair? Is my life over now that I've lost my hair? Was it over when I was 16 and it started to go? Well, let's get into that. All right, let's go back to 16-year-old Noah. He had a luscious head of hair. Decided he wanted to grow it out nice and long, get a ponytail, see what life was like with long locks. But when he was about 16 and a half maybe, he started to notice that, I don't know why I'm speaking in the third person, I'm going to switch back to first person. I started to notice that my hair was thinning, and when I looked in the mirror at the top of my head or saw a picture of myself when the light caught it the right way, I could see my scalp more than I thought I should be able to. That's when I started getting real self-conscious about it. It's hard not to be self-conscious about something when you're a teenager, of course, and if it wasn't that, it was going to be something else, but that became my main focus for my self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues. I'd always be checking it, seeing if it was getting worse or if it had stalled, if I was just imagining it. But as the years went by and I came to senior year, I had longer hair, and with longer hair it was more noticeable. I could see my scalp, showing through. I had to spend time combing it the right way, tying it up the right way to make it look fuller than it actually was. So, into senior year of high school came around, graduated, had a pretty good high school time. I wasn't doing so badly. I decided to go and visit my sister, who was in the Peace Corps at the time, in a little country in West Africa called Burkina Faso. And I'd never been on a plane before. I'd never been out of the country before. This was going to be my first, big trip out on my own. And I was excited about it. I was trepidatious, but I was open-minded and just wanted to experience what the world had to offer. So I got on a plane, flew for like 36 hours, it took to get to Burkina Faso. I landed in the capital city of Ouagadougou and spent a month there with my sister, exploring the country, meeting the people. And if you've never traveled like that before to other cultures, other countries, I super highly recommend it. It's the best way to learn about the world, about yourself, about everything that your upbringing has taught you that may or may not be as true as you thought it was, or as universal as you thought it was. People all over the world live lives that are drastically different from yours, from mine, and it's extremely valuable to get yourself out there and learn. It was culture shock for sure. People lived extremely different lives from what I was used to. Poverty was rampant, of course. They had much less in terms of material goods, in terms of monetary value than people I had grown up around had. But at the same time, they seemed more at peace. They seemed happier. They were more in touch with their communities, had closer bonds with their families, seemed to live more in the moment, and were less concerned about always striving for a lifestyle that was unattainable or out of reach. Most of their focus in terms of work was on growing food, making money however they could to pay for necessities, building shelter, taking care of their families. And while that is something that I'm grateful not to have to worry about most of the time in the same way that they do, they did live what seemed to be happier lives than I did back in the United States of America. And so that really got me thinking about values and what was important and what wasn't. And what wasn't important, I realized, was male pattern baldness. There's so many greater problems in the world than that. While I was there, for example, I was on this medication called malaria that you take daily in order to prevent contracting malaria. Well, a couple weeks into my journey there, I came down with a fever, and I was in a small village at the time. I thought, okay, hopefully this will pass within a few days. 2 or 3 days go by. It hasn't gotten better. It seems to be getting worse. Comes in spurts. It'll break out in a high fever, and then it'll abate for a few hours before it comes back again. So we end up taking a bus back to the capital city, Ouagadougou. And I remember sitting on the steps outside of the clinic, waiting for test results, something like that. And it was about 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I was just sitting in the full sun, and I was just shivering and shaking harder than ever before or since because I was so feverish. It turns out I did have malaria. They gave me medication, cleared up the symptoms within a couple of days, but it's not something you can ever gain an immunity to. It's a parasite, and people who live there mostly just live with it, and it doesn't affect them as severely and acutely as it affected me because their biology is just more used to that parasite, and so they're not bedridden like I was for a lot of that time. But there are parts of the world where people suffer with disease like that all the time, where it's just commonplace. 1 million people in Africa die every year from malaria. And here I was back home worried about my head not having as much hair as it used to have. And that was taking up a lot of my emotional time and energy. Not like 10 hours a day, but enough that it was affecting my quality of life. And so when I got back to America, I was reflecting on all this. I had lost at least 20 pounds. I was down to 108 pounds after getting back from Africa and having malaria. And I was just reflecting, eating a lot, trying to gain the weight back, and digesting what I had learned there. And I realized I didn't want to spend my life fighting this uphill battle against nature, trying to regain my hair that was falling out. I didn't want to turn to solutions, quote unquote, like Rogaine, minoxidil, topical solution, or oral medication like finasteride, or hair surgery, all of which we'll talk about more a little bit soon, a little bit later. But at the time, I just realized I shouldn't allow this so much control over my happiness. So I decided I'm just going to shave it all off. And that was big because it had been 2 or 3 years since I'd even had a haircut. I wanted to grow long hair, and I had long hair by that time. But I decided just to not even go short. I would shave it all off and go completely bald. In a statement to myself, telling myself that my hair doesn't determine my happiness. And it was one of the best decisions I'd made. There was some regret there after it was all gone. I wanted my hair back. Part of me did. But part of me realized it was a good thing. And I found some pictures from that day that I'll share with you here. Now, for the next few years after that, sometimes I would grow my hair back short. Sometimes I would shave it all the way off. But for the last 6 years or so, yeah, it's been completely shaven off. And has it affected my life? In good ways, like I was describing. It taught me to be less self-conscious. It helped teach me that there are a lot more important things in life than, your tan or your little flaws. If you're a little soft around the middle, if you're losing your hair, whatever insecurity you have, there are a lot more important things to focus on in life than that. And directing our energy back into ourselves, it's dysfunctional. We should be directing most of our energy out into the world, into other people, thinking about other people, thinking about giving back, thinking about creating, thinking about putting our energy into the world, rather than directing that energy back into ourselves, being self-conscious, looking at our flaws, trying to obsess over presenting ourselves in a way that nature might not have intended for us, for better or worse. So I'm going to address another comment that I got here. He says, "Hi, dude. Use finasteride and minoxidil for hair loose. Girls don't like bald man. You will look awesome with hair." So that's one route that people can go down, is trying to fight against the current that nature has determined for them, and try to prevent hair loss. You can use topical creams like minoxidil, which is in Rogaine, or you can use an oral medication like finasteride, which is in Propecia. And there are other remedies, natural remedies out there as well, but these are the two that are recognized to actually work. The problem is they come with a host of side effects, potential side effects, including with the oral medication finasteride, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and sexual dysfunction. And for a lot of the guys who are watching my videos on this channel or on my website, that's not something that you want to risk if you're already struggling with some sexual dysfunction from pornography use. It's not something that you want to add onto your list of worries. Trust me, you don't want to be one of the guys who have reached out to me, contacted me, complaining about post-finasteride syndrome and wondering if they'll ever get their sexuality back after using that medication. Is it worth the risk? I don't think so. Minoxidil has fewer potential side effects, less severe, but still, if you choose to do that, you're committing to put this cream on your head every single day. That means every single day you're thinking about your hair loss. Every single day you're reinforcing that it's something to be ashamed of, it's something to fight against. And I'm here to tell you that it can be much more freeing and empowering just to embrace whatever nature has in store for you. You know, if it's a debilitating disease that you can fight with medication, absolutely, sure. But if it's something cosmetic, superficial, like hair loss, maybe it's best just to embrace it. Maybe that's going to make you happier than fighting against it. It did for me. And as for these guys who think that women aren't attracted to bald men, in part, they're probably right. Some women probably don't like the look. Some women are turned on by the look. Some women don't like skinny men or short men or tall men or fat men or bulky men. Some women don't like men of certain races or certain religions. You can't please everybody, and you shouldn't try. Embrace yourself, embrace who you want to be, and do what's right by you, and that'll be much more attractive than any superficial element to your appearance. And what is universally unattractive is someone who is obsessed with themselves, has low self-confidence, and whose self-esteem depends on the opinion of others. That is universally unattractive, and that is really the thing that's going to hold you back in dating or with women, if that's what you're concerned about. Being bald doesn't have to, and it's a lot more admirable, I think, to embrace it rather than allow it to affect your emotional state. Rock the balding look or shave it off completely. That's my 2 cents. Of course, if you're committed to fighting it, if you are committed to getting your full head of hair back, then you're not going to let me stop you. But down the line, when it becomes untenable, when you realize that it's not really something that you want to do anymore, then remember this video, remember what I said, and remember that your life doesn't have to be over after you start to go bald. Oh, the other solution that I haven't talked about yet is surgery. You can have hair transplant surgery, and there are a couple different types of this, where they either cut a strip of your skin, cut a strip of your scalp off of your head, sew that wound closed, and use that strip to harvest hair follicles, healthy hair follicles, from the part of your head that's not balding, male pattern baldness. And then they put those follicles one by one into the part of your head that is balding. Or there's another method where they extract the follicles one by one from your skin and move them onto the top of your head. It can be painful. There's a lot of upkeep. It takes about 6 months to a year to start seeing the results of that surgery. It works, yeah, but it's not going to stop the onset of baldness. So if you haven't stopped balding and it's continuing to progress, it will continue to progress after the surgery. It's expensive. It's an elective surgery. Is it worth it? I don't think so. To be honest, I'd be embarrassed if I cared that much about my balding appearance that I chose to go down that route and get an elective surgery. I'm not trying to shame anyone who makes that decision and goes that route, but it's not something that I would ever do. I can tell you that. Here's another comment from another gentleman on the channel. He says, "Do you all know why he is bald? Because he has low self-esteem, so he shaved his hair off because he is ashamed of his bald spot. Do you all want to take advice from this guy?" Just an example of some of the hate that I get online, which is actually kind of rare. I've been blessed and lucky sharing my story and my life online that most people have only had positive things to say. But sometimes you get someone like this. And I never thought of it as I shaved my head because I wanted to hide my my baldness. I thought everybody knew once I shaved my head that it wasn't just because I thought the look was cool. I thought it was pretty clear that it was because I was balding and I was embracing it. Anyway, that's what I have to say on this issue. Whatever your point of low self-esteem or self-criticism is, I encourage you to start thinking about it in a different way. You really can choose to direct your energy elsewhere. If it's something that you can do something about in a healthy way, like you worry that you're not fit enough or you're a little bit too fat or too skinny or whatever, and you can change your body composition over time in a healthy way, and that makes you feel good on various levels, then go for it. But if it's, trying to change the nature of who you are with surgical techniques or with medications, pharmaceuticals, there are options now that allow us to change our bodies in that way and change our appearance in that way. But is that a route that you really want to go down? I mean, I've seen a lot of people go down that route with various aspects of their physiology. I haven't seen it make very many people happy. And once you start down that path, it's not a path that ends. There's always some other goal, and you might think that that next thing, that next milestone is going to be the point at which you're happy with yourself. But it doesn't tend to work that way. Self-acceptance, you can get that right now, and you can start being happy right now. It doesn't have to wait until you lose that 20 pounds or until you're tan or until you remove that embarrassing body hair or whatever it is. It doesn't have to wait until then. It can start right now. And that's what I have to say today. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, if you want my personal help, you can find me on my website, coachchurch.com. All right, everybody, I'm going to leave you with one last comment. Since when I was looking for comments about my baldness, I just typed in the word bald in the YouTube comment search, and this is another one that came up. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.